Hello and welcome to the Navy Blue Corner. I'm Ian and we've got a massive show this week. The Blues went down to Adelaide Oval and finally defeated a South Australian side, defeating Port by 36 points in what was an absolute brutal performance by the Blues. We're here to dissect all the main talking points from the win. And of course, we're also here to preview what is set up to be an enormous game against the Bombers on King's Birthday Eve. Here to go through it all with me, as always, is, of course, my good mate, Lockie. Mate, how are you feeling after such an important victory this week?
Over the moon, mate. One of the most enjoyable viewing experiences this year. There's not many more hoodoos to break. I feel like there's only one big one in September for us to get over the line now.
Pretty much. It's nice. I was really ridiculously calm throughout that game. Don't know why, because it was a close one up until that last quarter. But, I mean, this is a new Carlton and new things are happening. So I'm keen to get stuck into it all. So let's jump into Navy noise and talk about the key takeaways from the win against Port. And kind of the first thing I want to jump off with, Lockie, is... I think that was one of the best performances I've seen in a very long time. So I've got to ask the question, was that the best four-quarter performance for the season? And to go one step further, is that the best four-quarter performance that we've had under Michael Voss?
Oh, it's a great question. Look at you. Great producing.
Starting hot. Starting hot.
Oh, I hadn't put thought into last season. I guess there's just a whole different feel right now. It feels crazy to me how recent the Sydney game was and how different we felt about the team then. Because these last couple of weeks, I'm with you. I felt so confident and calm throughout this whole game. It just felt like we were going to put the foot down at some stage. Even though I felt like we still played well to only be up minorly at three-quarter time. So... yes, you've produced the show so well already. I'm going to say yes, that was our best fourth quarter, because there's so many factors that go into it. Obviously, that they're a top 4 team, and having to go to Adelaide is a massive part of this.
It's something we haven't clearly been able to do in a very long time. Never winning at that ground in particular. Last time we beat Port Adelaide over in South Australia was, of course, that last round of the season, comeback win, last game at Amy. And it's been a long time, so I think it clearly is important. I know a lot of saying that Port Adelaide, they're pretenders, they're not top 4, who have they beaten? There's a lot of things that come out after a game like this, which is always interesting. You know, the rhetoric was leading into it, Carlton, who have we beaten? You win one of these games, all of a sudden you're a star. You lose one game and it's who have you beaten? Like, it's the cycle that just keeps going. But I don't worry about that. I really just was so intent on how we performed throughout this game. And the recency bias will say that it's the best performance, 4 quarters at least, under Michael Voss. And it is quite hard, even just trying to think back, to find one that was better, because it was a really mature performance from the start. You know, Port Adelaide do get a bit of ascendancy in that first quarter, but I just felt we managed things well. We controlled the ball when we needed to. I was impressed that we went slow at stages. We didn't feel the need to rush or even kick the ball long down the line. There was a lot of just chip kicks, hold possession, slow the game down, work your way through a team, which is a maturity I haven't really seen Carlton do a lot. And we saw for 3 quarters at least, the transition game was there the whole time. It was amazing. It was just that stoppage game that we didn't have. And then all of a sudden, second half, and in particular that last quarter, things start to turn for us. We start dominating those facets of the game. And the way we've finally adapted in a game like this, which we've spoken about quite often, we're struggling in one area and we never kind of work it out. Was that something that for you was one of the most impressive parts of this win, that we finally fixed an area that we were having trouble with in game?
It's crazy, isn't it? Like I didn't have the way that fourth quarter played out as the way that it would, if that makes sense. But it just, to speak to the 4 quarter performance aspect of it, it just felt like everyone was a contributor. Like, how many times, like, there's been so many times this season where we haven't been able to say that, and where the role players haven't done their thing or the stars have been down. And it just feels like now we've put in a few weeks of everyone being up there. and doing it in so many different ways, like you said. Like, that's one of the reasons to be so optimistic, I think, about where we're going with everything right now.
Yeah, there was just not only even contributors across the park, but in every facet of the game. The turnover was there, the stoppage turned up. There was really not a lot to be upset about, which you haven't been able to say about Carlton. There always seems to be one quarter that wasn't amazing, one part of the game that as soon as one thing's going well, we sort of struggle in another area. We've had that discussion with is it 2 rucks or 1 ruck? What's the best Carlton? What's the thing that we need to have? And then to do that against a quality opposition, interstate, away from home, place we've notoriously struggled, it's just absolutely massive, and it deserves all the credit there. So let's talk about one of the key takeaways. Let's start and talk about that last quarter and just what was so impressive from that. 7 goals won from stoppages in the last quarter. That's 43 points from stoppages after we only generated 13 points from stoppages in the first 3 quarters, Lockie, all the while still generating 49 points off turnover. So we're doing it everywhere. What impressed you about that last quarter?
Oh, where to even begin? I'll throw a bunch of things out there and I'll let you tangent off whichever one you want. Like, obviously, TDK just continuing to rise and rise. Like, he's just putting the 2 ruck debate to rest, I feel like, as each week goes by. I think the midfield looks so different to me just with Hollands in there. Even when it isn't him necessarily impacting, it just, the whole dynamic feels different. It enables Cripps and Walsh to do different things. Yeah, I mean, they're the main two. Like, they're not a slouch of a midfield. That was one of your key concerns last week, was the impact that their 2 main guys can have. And where the hell were they in the last?
Yeah, and that was so good for most of that game, particularly Horn Francis, I thought. I know Chin Cotter was absolutely dominating, but that's where Port's strength was. And clearly when we weren't generating our scores from stoppages, from those clearances, and that's where Port Adelaide were causing so many troubles, getting the ball inside 50 so quickly. For us to turn that when we needed to, that's kind of one of those things that I'm so impressed on. And it's been something we've had to do the last few weeks. Again, in that, I guess, that Gold Coast game as well, where even if we were better for most of the game, I felt we dominated certain aspects for all 4 quarters and probably deserved to have a bit more of a lead heading into each break. But then you have to keep coming out and performing. Did that against Gold Coast last quarter, shut the game out. Thought we did that to an even bigger degree this week, which was something that impressed me. We know we have that sort of contest and pressure game style. Fitness has been questioned from us. I certainly questioned it after that Melbourne game when we kind of had that bit of a fade out. If we're going to continue playing this game style, if games are going to be tight, can we still have that energy to keep going late into games? I think it's clear we've got that ability, and we did different things around the stoppages and were able to find a way to not only win that area of the ground, but put it on the scoreboard. And when you've got a guy like Paddy Cripps that has just stood up as much as he did in that last quarter, kicks those 2 goals pretty quickly, it's just incredible to see.
Yeah, exactly right. And I think something that enabled that last quarter to be so great was where we were taking those shots from as well. Like, we were obviously able to put them away in a really efficient way. And you think about so many of those goals that we put through that are snaps or bananas from kind of central 30 meters out, 20 meters out. Like, we just enabled that performance so well. And yeah, gee whiz. I was as excited as Z Will was.
Oh, how's this? We've unearthed another absolute gem in the forward line. I mean, that's 2 games. What's he kicked now? 7 or something.
It's certified
could have had
now.
Even more in that game. And I mean, that was a big thing that I had as well, was, that 3rd quarter, got the ball inside 50 quite a lot, but weren't able to create good chances at goal. And the ones we did create, we weren't able to put those into proper scores. So then in that last quarter, to just be so much more efficient when the pressure was on, that is just a massive improvement for this group to have a little bit more of that composure. We had 15 more inside 50s for the game, and we're plus 11 in the second half. We've seen it a few times. I think the GWS game, big 3rd quarter, And now, again, this time, we've really shown what we can do in the second half of games. What else did you enjoy, and what were your other key takeaways from that game? Did you want to talk about big Z-Dub?
Z-Dub is a massive one. Like, I guess this is a bigger picture thing that I guess maybe we'll discuss later, but I was constantly thinking through this game of who is out injured at the moment. Like, who are the guys to come back into this team, and what does that new, like, best 23 look like? And it feels like we're just edging so much closer to that best team. And this forward line, is it just Martin to come? Like, is he just the one that makes this the best 7? Like, I don't know. It's
stiff on Cottrell when he's eventually fit, because I think he has to come into this team, because I mean, he was one of our best forwards, high half forwards that we had all season. And I know it's stiff at this stage to drop someone, but I don't know. I'd probably have him above a couple. But yeah, I mean, Cottrell, Motlop, Martin off the top of my head are the ones that have the capacity to be obviously what we see best 22.
Yes.
But it's one of those things. If everyone's performing, then where's the spot? You know, is it stiff that does a Martin take Owi's spot? Cottrell takes Fantasia, and that's what you do if everyone was fit right now? Is that harsh on those guys? It's one of the best positions to be in. Finally, we've got a few guys fit. Still got a fair few injured. Obviously, Chera's one that has to come into this team.
This is what I'm saying.
Even existed because of how well the midfield's gone. But for us to have these injuries, and seemingly, at least over the last few weeks, it not feel like we have injuries is just so impressive.
Yeah, exactly right. And that's the exact thing that I did doing this best 23 exercise earlier today. It's like, yeah, there is so many guys fighting for these spots. So if we can stay healthy and put that selection pressure on, that's amazing. But the point of my tangent was, I think Williams has to be the top of that small forward list right now. Like, I know it's only been a small sample size, but it's been too impressive. He just does the simple things so well. Why haven't the others been able to do this? Why can't the others kick goals like he can? It's crazy.
And it's not just that as well. It's the work rate and the intensity I see from him around the ball, whether he's chasing, just putting on pressure, and the intent that when he gets the ball, he wants to make something happen. Now, we've been crying out for this for so long. A guy gets the ball and he wants to look straight for the goals. And I wasn't sure he had that skill set in him. But I mean, again, small sample size. You don't want to go too early on things, but I'm not seeing the deficiencies in his game. Like, he's taking some really strong marks. His movement inside 50 is really good. He's finishing and eye for goal. Like, this is something that we've wanted from a few of our small forwards this year. I guess you can throw it under the bus like a Durden and a Fantasia. Like, when you're in and around it, I want you to know it and have that goal sense and create things. Now, Zach Williams come out of nowhere and he's nailing everything he's sort of thrown at him. I would definitely say at the moment, as far as those sort of more attacking, goal-scoring forwards, he's at the top of the list on form for sure.
Gotta be. And yeah, you feel comfortable with him as being that last guy, like in a one-on-one, which he showed. If you get pushed up the ground a bit more and he's the one putting it inside 50, like, just perfect. Well done. Well done, coaches.
And if you need to roll someone else up to the stoppage, you can kind of trust him to burst through. So it's great to see from Vossi and the coaches that they are trying different things right now, something we've been critical on, and at least what they are trying right now seems to be working. So a lot of positives there. What else did you like from this game, Lockie?
Oh, I'm keen to see where you want to go with it. There was nothing else really massive. Like, I feel like the defense, it's just clockwork now to me. Like, just, again, different guys stood up this week than did against the Gold Coast, which was good. And it's just, super systematic and working really well. Well, what else did you have as a big one?
Yeah, I guess that kind of ties into one of mine, which was just pressure and work rate was just, again, really impressive. We know this is the focal point of what we're attempting to stand for, but there's a difference in putting words on a whiteboard and then actually doing it on the ground itself. And I really just wanted to highlight a few things. I thought particularly in that last quarter, just the critical contest won by guys like Fogarty in particular. He stepped up incredibly well, and also Chincotta, just at ground level. They're things that no one will be talking about outside of Carlton because they're not noticing it. But I don't know, there was so many times balls just outside, our forward 50 need to just be clean, need to get a handball out. And it was those guys that seem to be doing it each and every time. And this is the role players that we've been crying out for years. And when these guys are doing that consistently, it's clear that this isn't just a one-off, and it's all starting to come together with a little bit of continuity. And then I did want to mention that, Newman, Boyd, Cow, and you throw Kemp, throw the whole back line into it. I thought down back, they were just incredibly strong and working to get to every single contest, to put pressure on, whether that's forcing a fumble, a turnover, or all just evening out the contest. Them pressing up high was definitely allowing us to not only win those turnovers, but just generate better looks inside 50 and generate some run off half back because that was set up so well.
God, I just hope we can find a way to just keep this continuity within that group, because I think it's just only going to get stronger and stronger. Like, it's just such a beautiful feeling when a team is going inside 50. And you can debate or not whether you think Port is a full contender, but you have to say they're a better than average team at worst. And you feel so confident with them going inside 50 that our defenders trust each other and the system's in place and they're all, good enough one-on-one that most of the time we're going to come away with it, which is just great.
And I said in the sort of the previous show last week that Port Adelaide, their big strength was tackles. How are we going to deal with that pressure, and can we bring it ourselves? In the end, what was it? We ended up having 3 less tackles at quarter time, but we won the tackle count by the end of the game by 15. While also having, 6 more disposals, 4 more contested possessions, and 4 more uncontested. So we clearly had a lot of the ball ourselves anyway. I just think that's elite pressure and something that deserves to be called out and appreciated. And the only other talking point that, again, it's kind of moving towards this preview of the Essendon game and just what the team looks like going forward. We saw it for the first time last week, and that is Chincotta as the tagger on Tuke Miller. Another massive shutdown performance this week. What did you make of it, and how are you seeing this role panning out? We've spoken previously about if you play a bit more of a defensive role, are you losing something elsewhere? What does Chincotta have to do to, I guess, justify that negative position in the team? Where you're kind of seeing it after another week and another big performance?
Well, definitely, spoiler, he's my 2 voter this week. I think he 100% deserves to be called out in that regard because, it's incredibly instrumental to the whole team performance when he can do this. I think it will be team dependent. I'm keen to hear your view on that, but I think we will come up against opposition where that isn't a tactic that we'll necessarily need to use. But this was just another example of when you take an element out, how much it negates the entire team's, the opposition's system and their abilities. So, maybe during the buys or something, we're going to have to do, the best 23 activity because, again, it's how can you make a case? Well, you can make a case, but it's tough to make a case for Chincotta coming out of this team right now because he's just bringing so much.
Yeah, I mean, for him to shut down Butters the way he did, he had no real impact on the game at all. So I love that it is something that clearly has worked. That's 2 weeks in a row he shut down his direct opponent. And then the few weeks before that, when he was having to play a defensive role in the defensive half, he was shutting down the best small forward. So I think there's clearly a role for him here. I liked this week that felt like he was winning a lot more of the ball himself and having a bit more of an impact positively for us that way, which I'm interested to see how that starts to play out in the coming weeks, whether he takes on a guy like a Merritt this week. Is that the role that we want to see?
I think so.
Yeah, and it's just, you look at our midfield and at times I think we can get hurt for movement around stoppages and when teams kind of get out, that defensively can hurt us. So I wonder if trying to be a bit more defensive and throw a Chincotta around stoppages, whether that has a positive effect for the way our midfield moves. I hope this is making sense, but it kind of counters out the fact that we're playing a defensive role because it's stopping the
100%.
opposition's movement. So therefore we're being more attacking off the back of it. But I think regardless, he could still maybe play a bit high half forward if we needed him to, rather than playing the lockdown role. And given the guys that we have fit and firing right now, there's no one else I kind of want to bring in for him wherever he's playing on the ground.
Yeah. No, how you've seen that is exactly how I have. If I think about a team like West Coast, for example, who feel like they have a bit more of like even contributors in the midfield and forward line, that's a team where I'm like, I don't know whether it would necessarily be our best strategy, but most of the time, like I think Essendon is a great example that if he can do that Butters job on merit, it completely changes the flow of how they work. So I think it definitely counteracts it and is a positive for us.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I mean, let us know if you're watching this one, what you think of Chin Cotter at the moment and where you kind of see his best role. 2 weeks in a row, we've got to talk about it in positive light. So definitely enjoy that. So yeah, drop it in the comments if you're watching on YouTube, or if you're listening in podcast form, in audio form. Head over to the socials at Navy Blue Corner. Always keen to get your thoughts. And so I guess tying this in with the big preview, the massive game against Essendon, I kind of want to talk a little bit about, and I know this has been a topic that we've covered quite a lot over the last few months in the talk about, are we contenders, all of that rhetoric. So I kind of want to change this up a little bit, because we've got a big statement win now. I want to ask what's next, Lockie, because, you know, we think we can match it with anyone. We think we're capable on our day to go on and really win everything this year. We think at our best we can win the flag. Right now, I want to ask, though, what is it that you think we still need to show, or I guess improve on, that will truly convince us that we are that top 4 side, that we can be confident every single week? Because as much as we are confident, it's still a little bit of on our day if we do rock up. Like, I know we're definitely more on the positive side than anything else, but what are those areas that we do still need to improve on to be that perfect team that are getting spoken about, like, I guess, Sydney right now? Because, results-wise, right now, everything's really, really close on the ladder. No teams, including us, have kind of broken away. So what do we need to change for us to do so?
Wow. I am so excited to hear your answer to this question, because I am racking my brain. Because I think it's unfair to expect that we're going to win every game for the rest of the season. Right?
Absolutely.
Not going to happen. Every single team in the league this year, including Sydney, has had at least one game where it's like, what on earth have we just seen? And we had that against Sydney. So I think it's unfair to say that we're not going to have anything like that. Wow, that's such a hard question, man. Because I was going to say, I guess, a big win against a true contender. But, you know.
Does that change anything? Does it?
Does it really?
Yeah, I don't know. And that's kind of my discussion, because I find the rhetoric around, you know, it's just funny listening to the media where, you know, Carlton does have that one win against Port, and all of a sudden it's, Carlton are 100%.
It's just a week-to-week thing, isn't it?
They're a top 4 team. And then, you know, if we lose to Essendon this week, it'll be like, Essendon are the real contenders. Yeah, Carlton's still not convinced. And all those idiots on Twitter will get out their little tier list and they'll say, no, this team is a contender. And now we're not a contender. And it's like, I'm sick of this reactionary, they are, they're not. It's like, if you either are a contender and you stay in that spot, or you're not in a contender spot yet, which I think is weird. It's just stupid. I absolutely hate it.
Me too.
I think the things that I think clearly we still need to improve on to a degree is, one, he's kind of shutting out teams a little earlier. Like, I know we said this was a massive performance for us, 4 quarters of great football, but still, you know, halfway through that third quarter, we were getting a massive ascendancy, but we're still allowing it to turn into a little bit of a shootout. Now, I don't know exactly what causes some of that. I know you're playing against a good team like Port. You got the 6-6-6. So as soon as a team, you know, starts to win some center clearances, which they're going to, it can be quite hard to defend. But what are those little things we need to tweak to make sure that these games are finished at halftime, finished at 3/4 time, and we keep teams a bit more at arm's length. So we're not having to start every single quarter 110% to try and make sure that this game is secured. Maybe there's those kind of elements.
True.
I don't know. Right now, my main thing, which maybe you can't control too much, but it's just, I think continuity is just that thing that will make us go to this next level. This was one of the first times I can remember in a long time we did not make a change to the team this week. The selection was run it back again, even down to the same sub.
It's beautiful.
We haven't been able to do that in a long time, and we've just spoken about who even comes into this team when they are fit, and these are those things. Our backline looks so much better now that these guys have played a few games together. We've got our best players in those positions. Staying healthy, being able to use the sub tactically, all these little elements that we haven't been able to do at all this year. Give us a month of the same players, and then we're selecting on form rather than who's fit. I think that's going to be one thing that'll go a massive way, because our record against the best teams this year has been pretty good.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good point. I think this discussion just speaks to how positive I am with our overall situation. Because as soon as you start looking at the other teams that are around, it's very easy to make reasons why we're on top. So if you talk about, if people say contender, which is again just another one of these words that I hate, you would be out of your mind to say that we're not a contender, because give me your list of contenders if we're not in it. Unless your opinion is that no team is going to beat Sydney this year. But they're going to have to go to the G at some stage. And then we'll get them.
No, 100%. So I want to bring this up, Lockie, and I'll chuck it up on screen. So those watching on YouTube will be able to see this lovely thing. Now, there's a lot of colors going on, a lot of things happening. Basically, I've picked the top 11 teams right now, because these are the ones that seem to be the clubs really fighting it out for top 8 positions. I think anyone below that right now, there's a clear gap. Like Hawthorn and Brisbane and Adelaide, those sort of teams don't feel like they're truly in contention. So I want to have a look at this. And this is the win, loss, and draw record against the teams you see on screen, because a lot has been spoken about Carlton's tough run. We've played a lot of the top 8 teams. So I wanted to stretch that out a little bit. So I think it's harsh not to include Collingwood, Melbourne, and on form at the moment, Western Bulldogs.
Agreed.
As, have you beaten these teams? Have you lost to them? I think it skews a few things. So firstly, I wanted to look at and say the teams that have played the most out of this are Sydney, Carlton, and the Doggies. We've played 8 of this top 11 right now. The rest have played 6 and a couple played 7. So roughly very similar. We've obviously had the harder run. Looking at the win-loss record, there's only 2 teams that are actually in the positive, depicted as green on screen, Lockie. That is Sydney, outstanding 8-0 at the moment. They've won every single game. And then we're 5-3. Only lost 3 games there. Geelong, which I think we, probably still think we could have won that one. Sydney, obviously, they're playing some amazing stuff. And then Collingwood, which we had some injuries. We weren't amazing. Very close loss again. You've got a couple of teams like Port and Melbourne that have a level win-loss record at the moment. A few teams below that I've got a bunch of draws in there. They're very close to even. So I've got those as oranges. Like you're clearly not as bad because you've got a few of the draws in there. And then all those teams in red that have a negative, win-loss record clearly against the best. So do you have any conclusions that you kind of draw when you see the teams that have maybe had that harder run and how good they are against the best teams in the competition right now?
I love this graphic. I think the main, my takeaway is reiterating my last point, which is give me a really strong argument of why we are not part of the top bunch of teams. Impossible.
Yeah. No. I think you can't find a reason why we're not. Looking at this, do you start to see some teams that maybe aren't in that contention. Like, I mean, GWS's form at the moment hasn't been amazing. You'd probably say Gold Coast's inability to win away from home is a concern.
Yep.
Dogs don't have that winning record, but they've probably started the season poorly and are getting better. But, you know, right now, to be one of the two teams that has a positive record in this, and, you know, if we are able to beat Essendon again this week, that goes to 6-3, and you're just looking even better that when you are versing the best teams in the comp, you can match it and be better. So I think that's the thing that gives me confidence that we've all felt we've had a pretty hard draw in not only who we've played, but when we've played them. So to then compare that to the other teams that are vying it out while the ladder is so close right now, when 2 weeks ago we're getting laughed at because we aren't in the 8, and it's like, mate, 2 weeks later we're sitting pretty beautifully, and I don't worry about that. It's how are we going against the best teams? The fact that we clearly can beat them all, maybe apart from Sydney as far as the result when we played them, I just think that holds us in such a good position, really heading into the bye. And even if we are to lose against Essendon, which we definitely don't want, it's not really going to change how I feel about our ability to go all the way. And then I think we're really, apart from Sydney, probably the easiest to say that they're top 4 this year.
I'm in complete agreement, mate. It's nice to be positive.
Absolutely. So let's round out the game. Let's go through the votes. The Navy Blue Corner, Blue Bagger Badge of Honor. I want to know everyone's 3, 2, 1. So if you're watching right now on YouTube, drop it in the comments. If you're listening in audio form, head over to the socials at Navy Blue Corner. Tweet at us, send us a DM. Let us know the 3, 2, 1. So, Lockie, who have you given your votes to and why?
I have gone with Mr. Tom de Koning for 3. I was surprised that he didn't receive any 5s in the coaches' votes. I thought that he was outstanding, doing so many different things and really just standing up as the number one guy. Like, what more can you really ask from him at this stage?
Not a lot. Not a lot. I mean, for him to step up and take over that number one ruck mantle, and every time he's done so, we've looked amazing, and what he's been able to contribute has been more than just the hit outs. It's the goal assists. It's the score involvements.
Tackling.
It's the ground balls. It's the pressure. We look a really good side when he's in there, and it's almost like he wants that number one ruck spot. He has something to prove, and he's doing amazing at it. So, spoiler, he's my 3 votes as well, Lockie,
nice.
Which we absolutely love. Who's your 2 votes to? You might have spoiled it a little earlier.
I did. Like, it just, he has to be in there. Chincotta is just doing an amazing selfless job right now. Amazing when he can get forward and kick a goal like he did. Just loving everything. We've already spoken heaps on him. And I just had to give Cripps the 1. Like, it's so funny when you 3/4 time, it's like, it hasn't been his best, and then he just goes and does that. It's been spoken about a lot in the media this week, but he is just undoubtedly one of the best players in the league.
Oh, mate, by far, I'm very similar. I gave obviously my 3 to de Koning. Now, I know our 2 votes is for someone who kind of went above and beyond their role and maybe what's expected of them. So maybe this isn't allowed as much, but I've given my 2 to Paddy Cripps because I know we have really high standards for him, but it wasn't just what he did in the middle. This is a guy that last quarter we needed sort of someone to step up, someone to set the tone, for him to move down into the forward line around the stoppages and kick 2 of the quickest goals that just sort of set that game apart, that gave us that gap that we needed on the scoreboard. I think that deserves a above and beyond, because he hasn't been that player this season, at least, that's really burst away, kicking a lot of those match-winning goals for us. So for me, he gets the 2, and then I've given the 1 to Nick Newman. Very stiff on a few other players, but look, he was so clinical for us down in the back half, setting up so much, intercepting, doing everything we love for him. And just thought he was one of the better players that we had out there. But let us know your 3, 2, 1 votes. We'll be definitely doing a bit of a tally of this in the bye week coming up. Very keen to have a bit of a mid-season review on it all. But let's turn our attention, Lockie, towards the
Oh,
big
boy.
blockbuster clash against Essendon. It's absolutely massive against the old enemy. Both teams in some form. I know Essendon just lost to Gold Coast on the weekend, but they're sitting pretty in second spot on the ladder. It's the best they've been in God knows how long. As much as I hate Essendon, it is nice that two big powerhouses of the AFL are in form, which just makes these games worth so much more. So let's have a bit of a discussion about it, because a lot of the debate has been, are Essendon the real deal or not? And I want to know your thoughts on this, Lockie. A lot don't think they're as good as their ladder position reflects. So I want to know, are Essendon really good or are they frauds?
Create some bulletin board material here. No, I'm a little conflicted. I'll start by saying, I think I would have watched the majority of Essendon games this season, and I do not think that they are a top 4 team. No chance in hell, honestly. Having said that, I think there's parts of their team, if I look at like individuals, that are of concern. Like I think that their half back line at the moment is really strong. There's a lot of good names down there. Guys are in really good form. Ridley coming back in. That's been really solid. But there's just not enough there for me. I cannot express how confident I am going into this game against a team that is this is where we were at last week, though. We were so confident, for good reason. And feeling good.
No, I like it. So Lockie says they're absolutely frauds. That is on the record. Look, I
do.
We're very realistic on this show. We try to be as rational as possible. And so my response is very long-winded, and maybe it's a little fence city, but I'm going to go with it anyway, because look, I hate Essendon more than most. That has been well established for those that have listened to this podcast for years and years. But I think it's hard and very harsh to just say, oh, they're rubbish. You know, their win-loss record doesn't count, because I think in fairness to them, you can kind of only beat who is in front of you. And look, if we were in their position right now, hadn't played a lot of the top teams, but were sitting, second on the ladder, had all this going on for us, I know for a fact we would be having a go at the media, having a go at those on socials that were saying we're pretenders, being like, well, what do we got? What do we have to do? We're winning more games than we're losing. What do you want from us? So I think to that degree, you have to give them some credit. You can't just completely diminish what has happened. In saying that, though,
definitely not diminishing everything.
I don't think they're a top 4 side either. For me, they would have to prove a lot before I believe that they are that contender that you want to talk about, because I'm just not convinced on so many different facets of their game. Their midfield can be good, but I still think they're missing things there. Their forward line, apart from Langford right now, I'm not sure there's a lot else going on. I know you got Stringer in a contract year that seems to bob up, but are they as fluid down there? I think the back line is obviously something that goes well for them, but I mean, we'll find out this week how they go against a team that has some real power forwards, Charlie and Harry.
Exactly.
When they do come up against a team that has such giants down there, does their system counteract the fact that I guess one-on-one, they're not the best? Interested to find out. And I guess, again, in kind of saying this, there is that part of, what confidence can do for a side, not to just be so positive on Essendon right now. I just kind of want to be a bit balanced in this, because, we saw at the back end of last year just what that belief can kind of do to you, whether you're good enough or not. It can take you a little bit further. So, I guess I'm confident we will beat them on Sunday. I just think we do need to take them seriously. I don't want us to go in thinking, oh, they're pretenders, they're frauds, don't worry about it, we're just going to be the better side, because that's the chatter out there right now, that they haven't beaten anyone of substance. So you better believe that they're going to have a big point to prove. They're going to be massively motivated. They're going to come out very hot to start that game, because they have to prove that they're the real deal. A win against us right now after we beat Port would be massive, and the media will be hot on Essendon if they do so. So I just don't want to take them too lightly, but I mean, the rest of the season is going to show whether they are truly that top 4 team or whether they aren't.
The balanced nature of the league right now, like I just don't think there's any teams to not take seriously. Every team, well, I won't say every team. Most teams have shown their ability to get over the line, like, when it hasn't looked possible. So yeah, I'm certainly not completely diminishing them. But this is like, we try, as we've already spoken about today, not be slaves to the ladder. The ladder is so superficial when you just glance at it and you make conclusions about ladder positioning. And it's not even just about the wins. Just from watching them, like I said, pretty much the entire season. But Essendon supporters are agreeing. This is the talk that I'm seeing with mates and online. They're agreeing that they're probably not a top 2 team, which is what they are right now. And that's okay. That's a very high bar to set. And I don't think there was a single person in the world that would have thought they would be this high on the ladder at this stage. So that's okay. Yeah. But right now, if we aren't playing Sydney at the SCG, then I'm going into any Carlton game feeling very confident.
No, you have to be. You definitely have to be. So let's dive right into team selection. It was pretty boring last week. So let's see if things are a little bit spicier this week, Lockie. What changes would you be making?
Yeah, it's interesting. I love the continuity route. I think, well, we know that there isn't any big names returning from injury that we know of. So for me, it's really the Motlop one, whether you go with him or not. For me, I'm leaning towards, yes, bring him in for this one, in place of Fantasia. It was good that Carroll got to play a full VFL game in the end, even with being the sub. But I'd also be happy for him to move out of the sub spot this week.
So in saying that, would your move be Motlop into the side, Carroll out, and then Fantasia the sub? And what about that Motlop change makes you want to do that move?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it's a bit of, well, part of it is, I guess, Fantasia and how he's been.
God, he almost kicked the greatest goal that's ever been kicked in AFL history as well. If that had gone through, it's like you can have your spot for a month. Seriously.
I think, you could make arguments either way. Motlop, so this is our last game before the bye. I don't think it would disrupt continuity, which is the part that I preach, by doing a change like that. And this is such a, you could make, like I said, you could make it either way with Motlop, because he hasn't necessarily earned his way back into the team. But there comes to a stage where we just know who he is, and we understand that the VFL and AFL is very different. I don't think we have a lot to lose by making that change. I think there's more upside in doing a change like this for this week.
No, I quite like the rationale. I'm similar.
It's hard to make a strong case for it, honestly. If you kicked 5 or whatever in the VFL, it's much easier.
Yeah, you want that selection integrity. You want to reward form, but sometimes do you just go, like you said, I know what this guy is capable of. I know that he has shown better than maybe what we're getting out of a few other guys. Let's put him in there. I think I'm kind of similar because, look, I love that we've finally been able to have that continuity with this squad. Didn't make any changes last week. I kind of want to do almost the same this week. However, I think changing the sub is the swap that I would do right now. I'm just not sure Carroll is doing enough when coming on. We've seen him be the sub for a fair few weeks now. He has come on earlier in games and got a bit more of a half of footy. It's not sure he's impacting the game enough.
Agreed.
I know his position gives us a bit more versatility. The fact that he can play in the midfield, can be a bit half forward. And I know Motlop's form in the VFL, he hasn't done really anything to warrant a selection in the ones, but I just wouldn't mind Motlop as the sub, given he's got a bit of energy if you need him late in a game to try and win something for you off the bench. And I think, like you mentioned, the VFL can be difficult for those small forwards to really perform? Is the ball landing in the right areas? Is the ball just not going down there? Is the entry poor? You can kind of get lost a little bit. And I don't know. Motlop seems to me that he is that kind of person that will just thrive at the higher level regardless. I don't really recall that many times he's been in the VFL and kicked 4 or 5 and been electric, and you go, sweet, Motlop's back in this week. Seems as if his form in the VFL has always been a little suspect, but then you throw him in like last year, comes into that Port Adelaide game because of a late change, and he kicks 4 and couple in the first couple of minutes, and you're going, holy shit, we need to bring this guy in every week. What are we doing? I just think he is that guy. That's why I'm saying have him as that high energy sub rather than just throwing out Fantasia when, I don't know, I'm as much as I think Motlop's a better player and Fantasia hasn't been that great. Has Motlop done enough? I don't know. It's tough. So I'm very interested to know what other people are thinking, because I'm not 100% sold on anything. If they roll out the same team again, go for it. But
no issues with
I'm intrigued to know how people are seeing Motlop and then maybe a Binns, a Billy Wilson. So do people want Carroll straight in the team? I'd love to know how everyone is feeling about it.
Yeah, exactly. No, very aligned. I think, Jake, we're sitting in a nice spot, aren't we, when these are our selection conversations.
Beautiful. We absolutely love it. So let's go towards the what do you want to see, Lockie.
Wow.
Obviously, it's the win, but we have to be smarter than that. We have to pick something else. You can't just
say the win?
I want to win, and that ends the episode. You know we need to dig a little bit deeper. If you're watching this on YouTube, let us know what you want to see. If you're listening in audio form, at Navy Blue Corner, links to the socials are in the show notes, are in the description, so head on over. But Lockie, what do you want to see? What are those things that if we deliver, we win this game? And you can sit there at the end of it, bring out your little clipboard, get the permanent marker, put a little tick on there, and be very, very happy.
You know we have to give the shout out. I think it makes sense that we have to give the hashtag 75 shout out. Every time that this happens, we have to call it out until it no longer works. So shout out to Timmy Dub for that.
It's happened again. I mean, that was the best thing. And I love that listeners are getting around it too. Tweeting us as soon as we win, just being like, hashtag 75. It's happened again. It's just beautiful. Big love to Timmy Dub, as always.
It's great that it is such an objective indicator for us in this way, because this segment is hard at the moment for me to think of something interesting, because it just feels really obvious.
You know, I do agree. So I'm going to go slightly rogue, have a bit more fun with it, because clearly you're very boring. This late into the episode,
fun this is.
I'll carry things. Mate, maybe this has been done to death a little bit, but I just want to see the Mackays finally play against each other, because this is ridiculous. We know all the conspiracies, we know all the fun, but just particularly Harry is my main concern, that he's got a bit of a cold. He's rolled his ankle. He's just going to be unavailable for 1 week. I can't have that happen right now. I need to see Harry out there, and just so we can put this to bed and finally see it happen, and Harry can, kick an absolute bag, and Charlie can absolutely dominate Ben, because I assume that's probably going to be the matchup. I doubt they actually play on each other, but I want to see Ben Mackay crying while Harry just has his foot over him, one hand in the air, just celebrating at the end of the game. But yeah, part of me just goes, I'm not going to believe that they're both playing against each other, even if selection comes out, mate. I'm going to need, not even on the day of the game, I'm going to need to see lining up on field, ball bouncing, because you watch Ben and, get the sniffles in the warm-up and he's out.
Fair enough, mate. You have brought some fun to this segment. You're right. You've delivered. You've absolutely delivered. It will be a good spectacle. It's good for footy that it's finally going to happen. Touch.
Yes, definitely. So do you have any other little things that you want to see? Is there a rogue player that you're like, hey, just kick 3 goals? I want to see something from you. Because this week we saw the defenders go forward. I mean, Mitch McGovern's kicking goals. Brody Kemp is joining in on the fun. Do you want a wild celebration? Just a wild prediction from you, Lockie. I'm wanting a definitive answer here.
I can't go past Raz, because I do dislike, not that we have helped this in any way, But the general like football media is pretty down on him, I think, and kind of his role. And you hear on every broadcast, shout out to the fucking broadcasters again, like being like, what is his role in this team? Like, oh, he's just not the same as he was. And it's true. Like he isn't delivering what he has done in the past. So it felt to me like the Port game could be his chance. And when he had that shot early, it was like, oh, this could be it. And it didn't really happen. So that would be the one for me. Like if anyone's going to kick the first goal of the game, I would just adore it to be him.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that bit of positivity from you there. I think my one, I'll be very dull on the next one. I just want to see the same pressure and work rate that we saw against Port, because for us to have brought that for 4 quarters without really relenting, just that's what excites me. And it's from every single player. For us to win that tackle count by a considerable margin while having so much of the ball as well. I know we've said that tackle count doesn't necessarily matter too much, but when you are winning the ball and still winning that thing, that's when I'm really, really taking a step back and going, wow, you boys have absolutely tried your hardest out there. And it's a big game. It's a big occasion. How many of these big games have we really been able to stamp our authority on these big rivalry games? So that's what I want us to do. Have that pressure. Go out there with the intent that, it means a lot to beat Essendon, because that's what the fan base wants to see. So that's what I want to see from the players out there.
Yeah. No, I love that. I 100% love that. And then that's the weird part is often in this segment, my mind goes to what didn't we see? And therefore, what do I want to see? So when things are rolling so well, it's like, just run it all back. Just give me the same shit, and there's just no way we're not going to win.
Yeah, hashtag 75 is all we are after.
Exactly.
But before we wrap this episode up, we, of course, have to go to one of the great segments that we have here on the Navy Blue Corner. It's the Hall of Fame. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for the ceremony of ceremonies. Straighten your tie, adjust your monocle, and raise a pinky for the Navy Blue Corner Hall of Fame. Yes, it's the Hall of Fame, one of the great segments that we have here on the Navy Blue Corner. We had a double induction the other week. We've had the great Timmy Dubs, hashtag 75, getting inducted. Lockie, what has caught your eye this week? What would you like to induct into the Hall of Fame? I hope you've got something good for me.
The word on the grapevine is that you've over-delivered. And you've brought enough inductees for the entire family. So I'm going to be, here's the thing about this segment, Ian, which you might not understand.
Okay.
We don't just throw out nominations for the sake of it. Is that fair to say?
I would say that is, we try to hold a level of integrity to this.
Exactly right.
This beautiful Hall of Fame. This isn't like and this is rogue. You won't enjoy it. Hopefully some listeners do. It's not like the WWE Hall of Fame where we're just throwing in anyone. Donald Trump's getting in there. Bloke that wrestled run matches in there. This is a legit Hall of Fame.
You get it. This is what I'm saying. And I feel like in recent times we've had some really strong inductions. And it just doesn't feel right if I don't have something that I'm just itching to get out there. Okay. And this is putting the pressure back on you a little bit.
Yeah, it definitely is. So
we have a high standard.
Well, I had a couple I wasn't sure of. So maybe this week we change things up where I'm going to throw out a couple of nominations and then you can choose which one out of these deserves to get truly inducted into the Hall of Fame. So I want to start now. I hope that all 3 of these things you have seen. Otherwise, none of them are getting inducted. And this is going to be the worst segment of this that we've ever had. But hopefully at least one of them you have seen. So firstly, I want to start with our skipper. I'm not sure if you saw this in-game. Not sure if you saw this after the game. But have you paid much attention to our new Clash jumper at all, Lockie, this season?
I think I might know what you're referring to.
Yeah, so those who have seen it notice that it does have some navy blue up the top, but it has white cufflinks and the white collar. But, mate, I don't know what was going on. They've given out a custom Guernsey to Big Paddy Cripps out there. He's the only bloke with 2 navy cuffs on his shoulders there. Now, I jokingly said and threw out there that, look, considering he's the only bloke out there that got him, maybe each Navy cuff, you get one for every clutch goal you kick in the last quarter against Port, because he had two of the finest on his shoulders there. So I think that deserves a potential nomination that, we're not just giving the custom Guernsey out to bloody, Orazio Fantasia of the world. We're giving them out to the skipper. Big drive-by. Mate, SPS is not someone that would have ever gotten a custom Guernsey here. They're only giving them to the skipper, Paddy Cripps. So I love that we got his own little custom Guernsey. Keen to see what they change this week for him. What little intricacies can he find there? So that's
pretty good.
Nominee number 1. Nominee number 2, and this may genuinely win it all. Did you happen to watch any of the after the game coverage in the rooms at all after the game?
I caught bits. Nothing's jumping out to me, though.
Yeah, well, one thing I noticed at the time, and it was definitely confirmed well and truly after the fact, I was watching a bit of an interview. Maybe it was with Sam Walsh. I can't even remember who the interview was with because I was distracted. There was a man in the back, Lockie, that was stealing the show. He was very, very rowdy and visibly, in my opinion, drunk in the rooms, having the time of his life, giving everyone the biggest hugs I've ever seen. And that is the great man, Bryce Gibbs. He was in the locker rooms after the game, getting around everyone. And I was like, I'm pretty sure this guy's had a couple of frothies here and he's having the time of his life. And then after having that hunch, wake up the next morning, go and check Twitter, and he is drunk tweeted all over the place. He's giving it to everyone, up the baggers. So I think a nominee has to go to a very drunk Bryce Gibbs having a big, was it Thursday night? Absolutely love that from Big Bryce. And,
that's leading the way for me at the moment because there's so many elements that we love. We love, obviously, ex-players getting around the club, the players and all those things. And, a bit of a drunk tweet. I mean, we've all been there. We understand it.
And then the last potential nominee. This is very much you've had to have seen this, Lockie. It wasn't on the broadcast, but was definitely there a little bit later and thrown out on the socials. So there was a big, big, tough man that tried to just show off how big and brave he was on Thursday night. And that was Mitch Georgiades, Lockie. Now, this man was in the forward pocket, trying to chest out, show a bit of bravado, having a little go at our Jordan Boyd. Now, the clip of this is just absolutely perfect, and this man could not have failed more. He's gone up to Boyd, he's given him a couple, and then he launches to give him an almighty bump, and Boyd just ducks it, and he falls on his ass and looks like an absolute loser. So I think that deserved a bit of a nomination because, I love the opposition tries to act really tough. And then in just the funniest, stupidest way possible, somehow you tripping and falling over after looking tough just makes you look like the biggest loser that I've ever seen. So I think Georgiades deserves a bit of a nomination there because, I think we've all been there at stages where you try to look a bit tough and then something embarrassing happens. But at least that hasn't happened to me on national TV.
No, you've done well there. Three worthy nominations, I think. So but I can't go past Gibbsy, mate.
Yeah,
I think I'm honestly surprised that there isn't more Gibbs-esque guys trying to get amongst it right now. When the vibes are good, we're rolling towards finals. I want to see more of this. I want to see more drunk tweeting from, Carlton alumni and that kind of thing. And get into the ropes. Get around the boys.
Yeah, I want to start to see some real rogue figures from the 2010s. Bring, I don't know. What's Matty Korchek doing? Can he get a gig in the room? Come on, who's going to try and even better? You see a long list of these guys, big line of them, just knocking on the doors, trying to be I played for Carlton.
Exactly.
I was on the list, showing the little Wikipedia, I played 5 games. Let us in. That's what I want to be seeing each and every week.
I love it.
It is hard not to get around these blue boys right now.
Exactly right. Get on the bandwagon now while you still can.
Absolutely. So that is going to wrap this episode up. It's been a lot of fun to talk about another massive win by the Blues. Best performance for 4 quarters that we've seen all season. And we've both said the best one under Michael Voss. More of that to come. We've got a massive game this week against the Bombers, a team that we want to beat almost more than anyone else. Boy, it would be great to show them that they are the pretenders that everyone thinks that they are. We'll be here this time next week to go through it all, talk about the big talking points out of the game, big talking points for the week. And of course, actually, we'll be almost doing a bloody mid-season review because it'll be the bloody bye week. True. So don't even worry about it. We're still going to be here. There's going to be plenty of content for us to go through. Mid-season review, best 22, whatever you guys want. Drop it in the comments. We're happy to take some advice from you guys. We want to know what you want to see us cover in the mid-season. But I'm sure we'll be back here having a lot of fun talking about a big win over the Bombers. Up the bloody Baggers. See you guys next time.